Worthless gutter rat. You think you can just walk around here like you own the place? The words sliced through the air like a jagged knife, each syllable dripping with venom. Marcus's chest tightened, his breath coming in shallow gasps. He could feel the eyes of passers-by boring into him, their whispers like needles pricking his skin. Instead, he turned and ran, his bare feet slapping against the cracked pavement. The city was a maze of towering buildings and narrow alleys, but Marcus knew every twist and turn. Abandoned by his mother at the age of 5, he had learned to survive on his own. He didn't have a home. He had a corner of an abandoned warehouse. He had the streets, where he scavenged for food and avoided the gangs. But Marcus was used to the pain. A sudden scream pierced the air, sharp and panicked. His head snapped up, his body tensing. A sleek black car had crashed into a lamppost, its front end crumpled like paper. She was struggling against 2 men who were dragging her toward a van. Marcus didn't hesitate. It was like hitting a brick wall, but the element of surprise worked in his favor. She broke free and ran, her high heels clattering against the pavement. The other man, shorter but no less menacing, swung at Marcus. The punch connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling to the ground. Pain exploded in his head, but he scrambled to his feet, his vision swimming. He had to keep fighting. He had to buy her time. The next few minutes were a blur of fists and curses. Marcus fought with everything he had, but he was no match for the 2 men. Just as he thought it was over, the sound of sirens filled the air. The men hesitated, then cursed and ran, leaving Marcus battered and bleeding on the ground. The girl, trembling and tear-streaked, knelt beside him. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice shaking. Marcus managed a weak smile. "I've had worse." But as the police arrived and the paramedics tended to his wounds, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change. He didn't know it yet, but the girl he had just saved was Emily Carter, the daughter of one of the wealthiest men in the city. And her father, a man who had built his fortune on ruthless business deals and cutthroat tactics, was about to offer Marcus something he had never dared to dream of, a way out. But not everyone was happy about it. As Marcus would soon learn, the world of the rich and powerful was far more dangerous than the streets he had grown up on. And the scars of his past were about to be tested in ways he could never have imagined. Part 2. The hospital room was sterile and cold, the fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow on the white walls. Marcus lay in the narrow bed, his body aching from the fight. His jaw was bruised, his ribs tender, and his left arm was in a sling. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the storm of emotions raging inside him. He had never been in a place like this before. The clean sheets, the beeping machines, the nurses who spoke in soft, kind voices, it all felt alien to him. He kept expecting someone to burst in and tell him it was a mistake, that he didn't belong here. But no one did. Instead, the door opened and a man walked in. He was tall and impeccably dressed, his tailored suit probably worth more than Marcus's entire existence. His hair was silver at the temples and his eyes were sharp, calculating. Marcus recognized him immediately. Richard Carter. The billionaire. The man whose face was plastered on billboards and magazine covers. For a moment they just stared at each other. Then Richard spoke, his voice low and measured. "You're the boy who saved my daughter." It wasn't a question, but Marcus nodded anyway. He didn't trust himself to speak. Richard stepped closer, his gaze never leaving Marcus's face. "Do you know who I am?" Marcus swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." "Good." Richard's lips curved into a thin smile. "Then you'll understand when I say that I don't owe anyone anything. But my daughter, she's everything to me. And you risked your life to save her." Marcus's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't know where this was going, but he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Richard reached into his pocket and pulled out a check. He held it out to Marcus, his expression unreadable. "This is for you. A token of my gratitude." Marcus's eyes widened as he saw the amount. $5 million. His hands trembled as he took the check, his mind reeling. It was more money than he had ever seen in his life. More money than he could even comprehend. But as he stared at the check, a strange feeling settled in his chest. It wasn't joy or relief. It was emptiness. He had spent his entire life dreaming of a way out, of a chance to escape the streets. But now that it was here in his hands, it felt wrong. Richard seemed to sense his hesitation. "Is there a problem?" Marcus shook his head quickly. "No, sir. Just, I didn't do it for the money." Richard raised an eyebrow. "Then why did you do it?" Marcus hesitated. The truth was he didn't know. He had acted on instinct, driven by something deep inside him that he couldn't explain. But he couldn't say that to Richard Carter. So he just shrugged. I couldn't just stand there and do nothing. Richard studied him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded as if he had come to some decision. I see. Well, regardless of your reasons, you've earned this. But I want to offer you something else as well. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? Richard's smile widened, but there was something cold in his eyes. A job. A chance to work for me. To leave this life behind and start fresh. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. A job? Working for Richard Carter? Sounded too good to be true. But as he looked into Richard's eyes, he felt a flicker of unease. There was something about the man that made his skin crawl. Something dark and dangerous. But what choice did he have? He couldn't go back to the streets. Not now. Not after this. So he nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. Thank you, sir. I'd be honored. Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. Good. We'll start tomorrow. Be ready. As Richard turned and walked out of the room, Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't know what he had just gotten himself into, but he had a feeling that his life was about to get a lot more complicated. Part 3. The Trap. The next morning, Marcus was discharged from the hospital. He stepped out into the bright sunlight, the check for $5 million burning a hole in his pocket. He had barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. Richard had arranged for a car to pick him up, and as he climbed into the sleek black sedan, he couldn't help but feel like he was stepping into a different world. The car took him to a towering skyscraper in the heart of the city. The building was a symbol of power and wealth, its glass facade reflecting the sky like a mirror. Marcus had never been inside a place like this before, and as he stepped into the lobby, he felt small and out of place. A receptionist greeted him with a polite smile. Mr. Carter is expecting you. Please follow me. She led him to a private elevator which whisked them up to the top floor. The doors opened to reveal a sprawling office with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city. Richard was seated behind a massive desk, his expression unreadable. Welcome, he said, gesturing for Marcus to sit. I trust you had a good night's rest? Marcus nodded, though the truth was he had barely slept. He was too nervous, too unsure of what was to come. Richard leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him. I've been thinking about your situation, Marcus. You're a young man with potential, but you've been dealt a difficult hand in life. I want to give you a chance to change that. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. Richard's smile was thin. I'm sure you won't. But before we proceed, there's something you need to understand. Working for me isn't just a job. It's a commitment. A loyalty. Do you understand what I'm saying? Marcus nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure he did. Yes, sir. Good. Richard's eyes narrowed. Because if you betray that loyalty, there will be consequences. Severe consequences. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories about Richard Carter, about the ruthless way he dealt with his enemies, but he pushed the thought aside. He had no intention of betraying anyone. He just wanted a chance to start over. Richard leaned forward, his gaze intense. Now, let's talk about your first assignment. Part 4. The revelation. Over the next few weeks, Marcus threw himself into his new role. He was given a small apartment in a luxury building, a wardrobe of expensive clothes, and a salary that made his head spin. He was assigned to work as a personal assistant to Richard, running errands, managing schedules, and handling various tasks around the office. At first, it seemed like a dream come true. But as the days turned into weeks, Marcus began to notice things that made him uneasy. Richard's business dealings were shady at best, and he often used intimidation and threats to get what he wanted. Marcus tried to convince himself that it was just the way things were done in the world of the rich and powerful, but deep down he knew better. One evening, as he was leaving the office, he overheard a conversation between Richard and one of his associates. They were discussing a deal that involved smuggling illegal goods into the country. Marcus's blood ran cold. He had always suspected that Richard was involved in something shady, but hearing it confirmed was a different story. He didn't know what to do. If he confronted Richard, he risked losing everything. But if he stayed silent, he would be complicit in something illegal. He felt trapped, caught between his loyalty to Richard and his own moral compass. That night, as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he made a decision. He couldn't stay silent. He had to do something. But he knew he couldn't do it alone. The next morning, he went to the police. He told them everything he knew about Richard's illegal activities, providing them with evidence he had gathered over the weeks. It was a risky move, but he knew it was the right thing to do. As he walked out of the police station, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. He had done the right thing, even if it meant losing everything he had gained. But he didn't care. He had his integrity, and that was worth more than any amount of money.